is going to be a sped through re-recording of a workshop that I did back in October 2023. So this is a swerve drive minus the bumpers and minus a few gussets as well. We're going to be going over how this was made, how to make various things using feature scripts, and eventually how we can turn this into a drawing that we can then use. So I'm going to be breaking this down across multiple different things. So I guess just stick tight. We'll get through all of this. So for starters, I just want to show you the sketch that I made. So this is the sketch that I used to actually start creating the pieces of the drivetrain, with an individual side, with a bar to go through the middle just for support stuff, and then where each of the gearboxes is going to go. This is basically the basis that I used to create the drivetrain, and I'm going to walk all of you through how to do that now too. So with that, I am going to go to this new folder, and we're going to begin from scratch. All right, so the first step to making that drivetrain that I showed earlier is going to be creating the variable studio that is going to house all of our variables and spacings for making the parts of the drivetrain. So I'm going to start by creating a variable studio. So you'll notice that right away there isn't really anything. If you do have other variable studios in the document, as I do, I can insert that directly. So I guess just for the sake of simplicity, I'm just going to show you how to do one or two, and then I'm just going to insert this just because we're making the same thing. You don't need to learn how to type something over and over again. You just need to learn how to type it in once. Now, if I want to create a variable, I'll put in the name of the variable. So I'll call it name. I can choose the kind of variable I want, and then I can choose the value. Now, as I've mentioned before, if I put in centimeters, meters, millimeters, or something else, it'll switch over to inches if that's the variable. If that's the unit that I choose to use. I can also copy the table. I can rename it Mara's experimental table, whatever I really want to call it. That's really useful if you have multiple variable studios going on, or if you have multiple sub-assemblies going on in the same file. That's what's going to be really useful. Now, what I'm just going to do for now, I'm just going to do a cheat, and I'm going to put in variable studio 1. Now, the reason I'm putting this in here right away is so that I have this open and I can explain what it is that I did. So because I'm recording this in Zoom, I can actually just give y'all an idea of what I'm trying to emulate here. So we know we have squares, we have straight lines. Let's do that. So we know that we're going for basically a square-shaped drivetrain. We know that we're going to have in each corner a gearbox. And just for the sake of this, because I want to show you all how to do gussets later, we're going to have a bar going across like that as well. We're also going to have bumper mounts going along the side. So just to illustrate what's what now, the drivetrain side is going to be the total length of this. Oh boy. Okay, I'm going to erase that. I'm trying to write DT, but it didn't really work out. So that's going to be the whole drivetrain side. The gearbox side is this, or the side length of the swerve module is going to be just this little bit right here. The bumper mount width is this guy right here. The frame width is just going to be, you're using 2x1s, so that'll just be W. You don't really need that. And then this is going to be the motors, the mount spacing from the edge. Basically, I'm assuming that you need to be bare minimum, or like bare maximum, I guess I should say, 7 inches from this edge because of the rule about mounting points for the bumpers, should your bumpers be further than a 1/4 inch away from the drivetrain. So then from there, I'm going to get out of annotate now. You can calculate how far apart your mount spacing is going to be. So You'll notice that that one was actually done by a calculation. I wanted to divide the whole side by 2. So 0.5 times pound key drivetrain side minus pound key the edge. And that gave us 7 inches. Now, if I were to make this a bigger drivetrain, that number is going to update dynamically. That's a really beautiful part of Variable Studios. But let's see another feature here. So you can actually drag these into whatever order you want. And I mean any order, or do I? I don't. So you see right away that this turned red. And the reason is you are mentioning variables that haven't been defined yet. So if they haven't been defined yet, your Variable Studio is not going to know what to do. So you do want to put that at the bottom. My general rule for this is if you have independent variables, those go on the top. Anything that depends on that goes on the bottom, just like programming. And we all love to program. Now, another nifty thing is you can actually edit the reference, which means you can go to the original document this was from. I can remove the reference, and that just gets rid of it altogether. I don't want to do that. I want to keep it. Yeah, and again, you can reorder these tables if you want to. You can, do all sorts of things that you want. You can also select insert into all parts and assemblies, which would mean that if I create another part studio, if I create another assembly, another folder, these tables will just go right into it. And I think that's pretty nifty. I think we all do. So with that, we have our Variable Studio, and it's time for us to start on actually putting these into, our sketch. And now we also have this part studio, which has, watch this, I'm going to click on this tab on the side, our Variable Studios. Oh, why is this missing? Let's remove that for now. And we're going to insert that Variable Studio we just created. There we go, happy little Variable Studio. If it doesn't automatically populate, it could be that you, like me, were messing around with the document a lot, and eventually the document got a little confused. In a lot of cases, this will automatically populate and you don't have to worry about it. If you're like me and you like to mess around with the documents, you might need to put it in yourself. So with that, oh, nope, it's gone now because I forgot to hit the check mark. You're supposed to hit the check mark. I'm silly. I hit the check mark and now it's in there. So now we're going to start on that sketch. And I like to use the top plane. Everyone knows me. Everyone knows I like that top plane for this. And I'm going to start with just a center point rectangle, and you're going to notice that I'm using construction lines, and you'll understand why soon enough. So right now, I'm just going to do the frame, and I just need to make that frame. Uh-oh, I forgot what I need to make the frame. So I could just go to my Variable Studio over here and say, oh, I said 28 inches, so I'll just make it 28. Or I could do something else. I could just type it in here. And then I could say DT side, and there you go. Now I zoom out and that's 28 inches. But let's say I don't like 28 inches anymore and it's all about 26 inches. It updates dynamically. Lovely. We love that. So yeah, that's a pretty cool thing. So we'll just make sure that updates, and it didn't update. I wonder why. A little bit of a lag, perhaps. Looks like sometimes you just got to re-enter that. So yeah, that's pretty cool. Then you can just go ahead and make these equal to each other, and now you have a nice little square thing going. So now we also want to put in where our gearboxes are going to go, right? Because the gearboxes kind of need their own space since there's going to be a spinning wheel in that area. That's kind of important. So I'm going to do another center point rect. Well, I'm going to do a corner this time, actually. And now I'm going to start in this corner and I'm going to go out like that. And same thing as before. These sides are equal. And you're just going to select the side and you're going to insert that variable. Isn't that nifty? It is nifty. Everything about First is nifty, and we love it because engineers love it when things are cool. So you can do that 4 times. You could also just do a linear pattern. So the nice thing about a linear pattern is I can go in there. I can change the number of instances. I can change the spacing if I want to. So I could potentially do this. I could potentially go drivetrain side. And I know that you're going to have to subtract that side of the gearbox. And look at that. You can use a pattern to take care of it. Isn't that wonderful? You can also use the mirror tool if you want. So I'm just going to create a little mirror line, go in here. Nice, nice. Oh, no, that's supposed to be construction line. And then I could select these two, and I can mirror it about here. Nice. So now you have all your gearboxes. So now you actually need to add your actual, where your bar is actually going to be. So I'm going to go ahead and create more construction lines. Everything I'm doing is in construction. I want you to kind of internalize that. Everything I'm doing right now is in construction. So, you know, I'm just going to do this kind of cut and dry. You could pattern this if you wanted to. You could mirror this if you wanted to, but I've had a long day of work and all of you should know how to do patterns by now. If not, then again, find me or another mentor at a meeting or watch one of the other tutorials. So with that, I am now going to set this distance to #W. I know it's the pound key, but I'm like a millennial / Gen Zer who thinks of hashtag instead of pound. So then we can just do the same thing here and here, all over these places. And see, that's kind of the nice thing about variable studios. You have the ability to just sort of take care of things without having to type in the same number over and over again. You can just leave things to the patterns. It's really nice. I think it's really, really nice. And now I'm going to do a center rectangle because that's where my center bar is going to go. Oh, nope, we don't want to extrude it yet. So we're going to go construction. And we're going to do one more time. There you go. So now you basically have the entire structure of your drivetrain. Okay, cool, Tamara, but I'm a little confused. You did everything in construction, so I don't really know what you're playing at here. Well, you're about to find out. So how are we going to turn this into a real, drivetrain? Well, I'm going to exit the sketch and I'm going to rename this base sketch. There is a reason I'm doing this. There is a method to my madness. So I'm going to start by actually creating the bars. And because we already have this whole layout right here, we can see what bars are distinct from each other versus what can be the same. So we know that this, and this are all the same, so you just need to make one of those. We know that this bar over here is distinct, so that needs to be made as well. And we know that whatever is going to connect this center bar to these two bars needs to be made as well. So that's a really important distinction to make, right? So now we're actually going to get started on this. And yes, we're selecting the top plane. So now we can go ahead and create those rectangles without having to use the construction tool. And you'll notice it just snaps right to the length that you need. That's pretty cool. So I'm going to hit the check mark, and now I'm going to extrude that. Now for this, I'm going to say it's better to kind of go symmetric just because I want that up and down. I want it to be above and below the top plane. We're going to select that bar, and you'll notice because I have symmetric on, the top plane acts as the mid plane. That's pretty nice. The depth is going to be double the width because we're using 2x1. Nice. So now you're going to have to go in there and you're going to have to add every single hole, and you're also going to have to make this hollow. So I just gave you a bunch of work to do. Or did I? I think I was being sarcastic. It's kind of hard to tell over the internet, isn't it? I was being sarcastic. We're going to be using a feature script to make our life way easier. So I'm going to go over to all of my delightful feature scripts. And I already have the ones I want to add, but I'm just going to show you how to do it in case you don't know. Because I didn't know, and, it's good to share info. So I'm going to go to other documents because I did not ever make a feature script. So I'm going to type in Julia's feature script. Wow, there's so many. That's because Julia's feature script is a very popular set of feature scripts that are used in FRC for Onshape. So there's all these feature scripts. I would say add as many as you want, knock yourself out. But we're going to be using the tube converter and a few others. So I'm just going to go ahead and tell you, pause the video right now, add these. Okay, I'm assuming you paused the video and added these. Great job. So I am going to go ahead and select the tube converter. And look, it even has this little tube icon. It's so nifty. I like things that are nifty. So bodies to convert. Well, we only have one body right now. We only have one part right now. So bodies to convert is just going to be this part. And you'll notice it's already taking some time to load. And oh, look at all those holes. But what if that's not the whole pattern you want? Well, thankfully, there's a lot of others. Maybe this is VersaFrame. Maybe you only have holes in the top. Maybe you want the holes to be a little bigger. Maybe you actually want there to be an offset. So you're offsetting from this end and you're offsetting it by, let's see, 0.25. Yep, it's offset by 0.25. And you'll notice that as you zoom out, you can actually kind of see the offset here. Let me actually make it a little more pronounced. Not quite, huh? So let me just, yep, there you go. So now it's offset by 0.5 inches. It's been a while since I've played around with this in the way that I typically do. So my brain's still kind of catching up. But yeah, you'll notice that you can actually change the pattern start offset, which is really useful if you know for a fact that you don't want the holes to be centered. Now, I do want the holes to be centered, so I'm just going to stick with that for now. Nice. And it says tube converter 1 over here. That's really, really nifty. So I'm just going to call, oh yeah, and it even names it over here too. Isn't that wonderful? So now you know that this is 2 by 1 by 19.5. And you only need one of these. So now I'm going to make the tube in the center, and we're going to do it basically the same way. We're going to go to the sketch tool. You're going to select the top plane as your sketch plane. We're going to click top over here just to give us a head-on view. Do a corner rectangle from here to here. Lovely. And now we're going to extrude that. And all of you know that I like to have it symmetric. All of you know that I like to have it be that times 2. All of you know. But one thing I want to point out, especially to those of you mentors who are new to part studios and such, you want to make sure you're saying new here. Because what happens when you say add is it's going to try to merge it with whatever part you have already. So you might end up accidentally creating a very bizarre T-shaped bar, even though what you actually want is your own bespoke bar. See, and the nice thing about that is it creates something called part 2, and it's a different color. By the way, this is where I kind of just jump in here and say this feature script will rename the part. Not all feature scripts will do that, and I highly recommend you use something like the dimensions or a distinct feature when you're naming the part. Try not to use color, and try not to use something that you know is going to show up with other parts as well. Anyways, PSA over. We're going to do the same thing, tube converter, this tube. Maybe this time we want to have a different hole pattern. It's going to take quite a bit of time to load though, so my recommendation is if you're not sure what hole pattern, if you're not sure if you have holes on this side, it would be probably a little bit better to just go with the top hole because you can change it later if you want to, which is really nice. Oh, and also you can do 2 rows. So as you can imagine, once you have all these holes, you might eventually have some issues loading. So again, if you don't want to add the holes, and you can go back and change it later. So now you've got 2 tubes here. That's pretty nice. And let's just see something real quick. The mass properties of this bar. Wait a minute. It's telling you a weight. How is that possible, you ask? Well, the magic of the tube converter. Tube converter will put in the material for you. And in the cases where it doesn't, you can edit the material. And again, in this case, it automatically selected 6061. This is aluminum. But if you decide you're going to make the exact same bar but out of steel, which please don't do that. I'm telling you this as someone who's had to handle steel. It's heavy. But yeah, if I decided I wanted to go with some really, really dense steel, it'll convert it for you. And then we check that bar, and suddenly it's almost 4 pounds. Take it from me, don't make it out of steel. It's going to be heavy. So we're just going to edit that again. We're going to go back to 6061. There you go. So that's pretty cool. But now we need to actually attach these bars together. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to make a gusset. I just like saying the word gusset. It's a really fun word, isn't it? Anyways, gusset. And you added that gusset earlier in the feature scripts when you paused. So you should already have this loaded. We're going to go ahead and start selecting some holes. And it's going to automatically generate material for us. Now, this gusset's not perfect. Maybe you want to lighten up the gusset a little bit. But for now, this gives us something nice that we can work with. It gives us something that can be laser cut or CNC, depending on what you're making your gusset out of. You can even select the material. Ooh, carbon fiber. Remind me to tell you all about the submarine team in person when we're at one of our meetings. Cool. So we're just going to leave it like this for now. And look at that. We have a gusset. Wow, we have a gusset. So what if we want to go a little further with this gusset? What if we want this gusset to be lighter than it already is? Well, what happens if we say lighten? And what happens if we select this gusset? So it's already going to try to automatically find a way to lighten this on its own without overly weakening the part. You can select the thickness of the walls. You can select the tool radius. You can even say, if you wanted to, that you're only going for a shallow cut. This isn't a particularly thick gusset, so I think I'll have to make it like 0.1 for it to, yeah, there you go. So yeah, that's another thing that you can do with this gusset, which I think is really neat. So I guess before we move on to the assembly stage, I'm just going to ask you to pause or stop this video and just try doing the feature scripts yourself. Play around. There's some really cool ones. Like, let's look through it together. So there's laser joints, there's spur gears and belts. This is going to be useful if we go to tank drive. There's the FRC belt calculator, there's a shaft generator spacer, there's max spline. Isogrid pattern is really useful if you decide to create light. Ooh, you know what? I'm just gonna demo that one right now. How about we demo it right now? Let's demo it right now. So let's say I decide that we need to lighten this tube. It's too heavy. It's, what did we say it was again? We said it's 1.303 pounds. Oh my God, that's too much weight. We gotta lighten this. And we can by using that isogrid pattern. We're going to pattern this region, and it's going to take a while to generate, but yeah, we should be able to eventually just create a little bit of a pattern here. We're going to lighten this body. It'll take some time to generate because, well, you're about to see. You're about to see. Yeah, so it'll create this nice little lightning pattern. You can go ahead and use, let's say you want to make this thinner, you can say it's 0.2. And again, this takes a really long time to load. So I would say maybe do this for the actual cut and then Like maybe if it makes a significant impact on your weight, keep it in there. But yeah, so something like this. And let's see what that does to the weight. Quite a bit lighter. So again, I'm not recommending that you do this or that you don't do this. It's just a nifty little feature I wanted to show you because you know me, I like nifty things. All right, so now we have a lot of our pieces. Let's figure out how to actually put these together into an assembly. So let's go ahead and create our assembly. And we're going to start by inserting that sketch. So let's insert the base sketch. You're going to think that's a little weird, but I'm onto something here. So we're going to start by fastening this to the origin. So origin here, and you're going to have to do some little hovering. There you go. Just center to center like that. And trust me, I am going somewhere with this. So now we're going to go ahead and insert from Part Studio 3. And yeah, we've got base sketch over here. So now we're going to do the tube. Yeah, the tube. And the long tube. Just for now. Oh, actually, hold on. We need to add the gusset too. Let's go ahead and start mating. So we're going to start with a fasten mate. And we're going to go ahead and you'll notice that you can actually put mate connectors at points. So I'm going to go ahead and put a mate connector right here at this corner. Once it cooperates. Yep. It's going to take a little bit of hovering to get what you want, like that. And then you'll do that. And look at that. It's fastened. Lovely. We love to see it. Now we're going to do this over here, basically in a similar way. We're going to go ahead and select. We're going to go ahead and select that corner. We'll select this corner. And yeah, that's it. And now we can do the gusset, which is pretty easy because we already have the whole pattern selected there. And now, easy as pie. That's pretty easy, right? So, cool, but now we have to repeat that 4 times, don't we? Well, I'm gonna get to that. For starters, we're gonna actually add one of the gearboxes. So let's see, I believe in MKCAD, I forget which one I used. I believe I used, well, we'll find out together. All right, sorry, I just had to go ahead and check the other document to confirm which one I used. So let's go ahead and put in the SDS MK4. Actually, no. Was it the 4i? It was the, no, it wasn't. Oh, yes, it was. So let's just go with the below frame 1032. Let's go with 2 Neos. Wheel type can change. A lot of this can change later on. Give it some time, and eventually it will load somewhere over here in the center. Just give it some time. Maybe close the MKCAD, and then, you know, just give it a minute or 2. So again, the reason it's taking so long to load is because all the parts are in here, so it really is just taking forever. And that's okay. So now we can kind of drag it over, drag it into roughly the position we want it in. We can zoom out, we can sort of pull it up like that. Alrighty. With that, we can zoom in and we can start doing the mates. So with that, we're gonna do another fasten mate. Oh, where'd it go? That was weird. We're gonna select top of this hole. My Wi-Fi is not so good, and it seems like that's kind of causing things to go a little bit catawampus. But for now, let's go ahead and see how that stacks up just to make sure I didn't select the wrong hole, and I don't think I did. Let's hit the check mark. And yeah, that looks okay. I did select the wrong side of the plate, so let me just go ahead and fix that. Don't worry, that happens a lot. Do not ever feel bad about what you did. You are trying your best, and that is good enough. There you go. See, easy as pie. So now you're just gonna have to do that 3 more times. Unless, so here's what we're gonna do to make things a little bit easier on ourselves. We're actually going to do what's called a circular pattern in the assembly. So to start with, we're gonna put a mate connector here. Let me hide this tube real quick. We're gonna add a mate connector to the origin. Honestly, you could probably start with this. It's just a nice way of creating an axis. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna create a circular pattern of the gearbox and of the tube. The axis is gonna be our mate connector. So now, if you look, oh, look, it just duplicated it. And now you're going all the way around. Look at that, you did it, good job. And if you want, you can also do, well, I mean, in this case, we can also do the circular pattern with that gusset. Let's do that gusset. And the axis of the pattern is going to be the mate connector. And there you go. That's pretty nifty. So there are a few more things you can do with this that I want to touch on really quickly. So if you went into Crayon CAD, or if you dealt a lot with these configurable gearboxes, you'll notice that there is some stuff you can do with it, that you can right click on it and say change configuration. What's a configuration? I'm glad you asked. We're going to start simple. So you see these holes in the gusset? You see these holes, and you see what holes are selected. So what we can do is we can go into the configuration panel and configure our part studio. So let's start basic, okay? So we're gonna go into Sketch, base Sketch, nope, and we're going to say edit. Now, right here, where it says 4.25, you can say configure dimension, and maybe that's your default, but now you're gonna say there is another configuration. We're gonna say configure, oops, sorry. Yeah, no, Onshape seems to want me to mess with it a little bit today. So we're gonna click there, and we're gonna type in different gearbox. And that one is gonna be, let's say, 6. So what that's not gonna end up doing is when you switch to this configuration, wait for it. I told you I'm not dealing with very good Wi-Fi right now. It changes a lot of things. One could even say it breaks things. So we're just gonna switch back to this default for now, because right now things are a little bit broken with the new. So that's one way you can use it. Another thing you can do if you wanted to is you can actually go ahead and you can suppress certain features altogether. So if I wanted to, for Tube Converter 2, I could actually configure the suppression in configuration. And again, it's going to take some time because my Wi-Fi connection, it says it's good. No, it's not. So you can go ahead and suppress Tube Converter 1 if you wanted to. Now, again, that's going to mess with your gussets because the gussets rely on that whole pattern. As you're about to find out, yep, messes with the gusset. So you're going to keep that. Another thing you can do if you really wanted to is you can even adjust some of the things in the extrude. So for gusset 1, I'm going to right click that. I'm going to say edit. Oh, not rename. I'm going to select that, say edit. I can actually, if I really wanted to, configure the thickness. So there's a lot you can do with configurations. So maybe for this thickness, I want a really, really thick gusset. I want an inch thick gusset. Please don't actually do that unless there's no other way around it. So right now on the default, we're good, we're fine. But now we're going to switch to different gearbox. And wait for it. Are you waiting for it? Ooh, what happened there? Ah, right. I'm going to go ahead and switch that back to up inside just for the sake of, fixing that tube. So yeah, that's the thing you want to be careful about with configurations. If you have features that are dependent on one another and you start to configure it after the fact, you might have to go back and make some changes. So now if you go to, looks like that 1 inch is too thick. What about half an inch? Half an inch is probably fine. Again, you don't want your gussets to be too thick usually, but I'm just doing this for the sake of playing around in Onshape. I doubt that anyone is actually out here making like 5-inch gussets or anything like that. Even that one's too thick. All right, fine. Let's see if that works. I'm just gonna wait for it to load. Cool, cool, cool. So now when I go to assembly 2, I can go over to part 3 and I can actually, if I wanted to, change which gusset I'm putting in. And right now it's still on the default, but once this loads, it gets a little thinner. Nicely done. All right, so that's a little bit about the configurations. Oh, and also to show you real quick the BOM table. So you can actually add columns if you want to. You can add materials. Let's quickly pull this out. So yeah, you can actually use this to generate something like a bill of materials. And that's going to be really useful when you're actually purchasing materials in advance, when you're trying to determine what has materials defined and what doesn't. Right now, everything has a material defined, which means that we can go over here to our mass properties and we can select the entire assembly and look what it's going to do. It's going to say the total mass so far. It's going to say the center of mass is 0, 0. Makes sense. This is perfectly symmetrical. And it'll give you an idea of how high up your center of mass is from the origins. So your origin's down here. We're actually a little bit higher than the midway because of how heavy these motors are. So if you have all your materials defined, if you know how to configure things, you're pretty good to go. So I might come back later to do a drawing, but for now, it seems like my Wi-Fi is slowing down, so I guess I'm going to call it for now. I hope this was informative for you, and I hope that you have a lot of fun, because CAD is fun. We're just all here for some good CAD and for the memories that we make in robotics. We're here to learn. We're here to be the next generation of engineers. I really am proud of you for getting this far. If you're a student or you're a mentor, or you're a volunteer, or for whatever reason, this is a future tomorrow who forgot how to do Onshape, keep it up. All right, bye-bye.